Okay. So in case you are just sitting down for the first time, make yourself comfortable. And I'll have with me Danny Wong from Vertiv, and we just have a short chat about data centers and AI. All right, Danny, are you ready to go?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
So, Danny, thanks for joining us today for our little chat, right? So, maybe could you, as an opening, right, share with us how has the data center evolved over the last 3 to 5 years?
Okay. I just put it in the context from the vendor perspective. A vendor participate heavily in the industries. I think there are a few things. Number one, that I noticed over the years, the industry was driving, and that is also something driving the strategy of our company, is efficiency. The drive for efficiency was always there. But over the past 5 years, from 5 years ago, you have PUE, you have WUE, you have now more strategic things about efficiency. And what we see that efficiency in the past was evolving around the line that from a shout out to a basic requirements. And to some company, they even have a green index, and that also affect the investment sentiment towards the company. Do you have carbon index that allow you to get green loan, something like that? So from an operational perspective, from a cost saving perspective, now it basically evolved even to the financing perspective. And this is what we see because this was something that drive a lot of our innovations along the line. I think the second thing is, since you mentioned AI, I guess AI make a lot of differences as well. Liquid cool, density change, and a lot of things change. So I won't elaborate those. I think you heard enough about AI changes. But I guess the third one that I'm not sure whether everyone in the market aware of this. In the past 5 years ago, the market is not so much driven by hyperscaler occupancy in the region. And this is the same across the world actually. It's just that in Southeast Asia is more prominent. And currently all the new build capacity, easily 90% of those, 80 to 90% depend on the countries, are taken up by hyperscaler. Now this doesn't mean that the enterprise level, the edge level are not growing, they are growing, but it's basically overshadowed by the hyperscaler. And when hyperscaler are building this, you start to see a lot of things that drive the industry to change a lot. Yes, because they are bringing a lot of the learning, they are bringing a lot of the technologies as that happening at the same time in the States and in Asia as well. So the technology gap is so small, but along the way, when we are seeing the deployment model, actually is quite fast as well. Yeah, I guess that's the few major changes that I see.
Wow, thanks so much for summarizing the last 5 years into like 3 sentences, right? So I guess it makes sense, right, that efficiency has always mattered, but never more so than today, right? People are crazy about efficiency, but I guess if the data centers have grown so big, then it has become to a point where it's not possible to ignore it anymore, right? And as you point out, it's also affecting financing as well.
Correct.
Right, and then of course you talk about AI workloads, which I thought is interesting because you talk about hyperscalers and how the hyperscalers has come in and doubled and tripled out on the learning stack in terms of dense data center. And I guess this learning is spilling over to the broader industry and helping us as well, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And forcing us to learn faster also.
Yes, correct. Absolutely. Build faster, learn faster, and move faster.
Okay, fantastic. Now, just to zoom in a little bit on AI, right? How do you see AI impacting data center densification?
The main culprit is AI. AI is a factory. So AI is no longer just applications. What we are building now for our customers is all AI factory. So when you look at things as a factory, you go beyond just looking at individual components. You go looking at the holistic way of building one factory. If I want to build one factory that can produce 10,000 handphones a day, so I look at the whole factory capacities and how do I get the factory together to build 10,000 handphones, assuming the 10,000 handphones that I build here is the most cost-effective way of building those. So when this is happening, the industry is juggling to trying to build a factory which is so effective, so efficient, and of course that a lot of those driven by the chipset capability as well, and the chipset capability plus the changes of the chipset architectures. They're no longer one chipset can produce how much one chipset how much. They design the chipset in an architecture that allow a lot of parallel programming, so that most efficient use of all the tools are there. Now, this impacts us a lot because when some of the chipset vendors say that I want to build one chipset with very good chipset and in the architecture that's very good, then they throw us a problem. Danny, this rack is going to take 1 gigawatt, 500 megawatt. I say in the rack. So that problem become the industry problem. If the industry doesn't have solution to address this density, that chipset cannot be deployed. When those chipset cannot be deployed, the AI factory that you build have a limitation towards the efficiency, capacities, and all sort of other things that come along of those. So when the AI affect the way the factory is set up, affect the way the data center are built around that, and this actually create a massive challenge for the industry in the way we set up, with the way how we vendor set up, how the consultant was structured, and a lot of these things now have to go through a very steep transitions to actually go into the perspective of seriously looking into this as a holistic view. 10 years ago, I will never ask the question. If the customer come and tell us that you need to build a data set, I will even not bother to ask the question, what chipset are you using? What server are you using? What brand are you using? Now this become a norm. 2 years ago, when we asked this question, a lot of customers not comfortable. They say, I can't tell you. I don't know yet. Last year, a lot of customers automatically come back and tell you, we are going to use this chipset. Do you have experience to build infrastructure to support this server, this chipset, and this sort of things? So there are a lot of steep learning for the industries as well. It's nothing new, but I think it's not an evolution, but more of a revolution to a certain extent. Yeah.
I like the way you frame the problem around AI, right? In the sense that at the end of the day, it's about the tokens that's created by the AI factory. But on the other end will be the power that goes in, right? And that I suspect is really the challenge, because depending on the chips that you use, the power requirements can be quite phenomenal.
Yes.
And you need to plan accordingly.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, so having said that, right, I mean, the hyperscalers, I guess they have their experts to work on it. But what about the rest of us, right? Especially the enterprises. What are the key challenges you reckon are faced by enterprises today when it comes to either AI or non-AI workloads that they're deploying today?
I think enterprise are in a dilemma to do two things. Number one is most enterprises have own data centers or even doing some cloud services. They already have a framework of how one to do. What our DR side will look like. How do I build infrastructures? Simple infrastructure. The enterprise could be a factory as well. So they are looking at this context. When they're looking at this context, at the same time, when you have uncertainty about this one, because in the past when they have planned something, they can use it for 5 years, 10 years, or if they are lucky, they can use it for beyond 10 years. Now, it's changed. It was drastically changed. So for hyperscaler, core law, they work differently. But for enterprise, the IT investment is not everything, right? It's not your business, it's not your tool to earn money. So in that context, they are trying to be very careful in deploying this one. Now, one of the challenges that we see that they face is that the knowledge base, that the team that they are having. If I draw back to earlier stage, even the whole industry are suffering from the knowledge base perspective. Is it not surprised the enterprise who have a relatively smaller knowledge base, skill set, will also suffer that? So I guess the bigger challenge for them to face, one is the knowledge. The second one is the strategy on what to build and how to build those things. And this is something that is very critical. My suggestion is I think enterprise couldn't, unlike core law is dependency on the hyperscalers and they build along the line. But for enterprises, they have to stick and make sure that they are making a decision at a time frame where they need to make a decision, because the chip and the server evolution is going drastically. So you can continue to monitor this without building anything. But I guess the more important part is how do you start deploying this. One of the latest report we see last week, in a month, I think there are 1 billion users of AI to one certain extent. Now, this beyond enterprises, and also goes to consumer like us, every one of us. And we could be also using small enterprises AI, because not only the big company are using AI for themselves, they're also using for others people. So the suggestion is to stick to an architecture that you need, that you want, and have to make the decision moving forward with the right infrastructure. Because pondering with that, I guess that the evolution will not stop, will not slow down for the next 3 to 5 years as well.
I guess my last question really is this, right? What do you advise an enterprise to do? Should they, I don't know, come to w.media events and figure out how to build their own AI data center, or look for you, or how can they make the best decision?
Yeah, I think the learning curve is so steep that it's very difficult for you to learn everything and grasp it to build it out. Honestly speaking, even though I'm from the vendor perspective community, I think it is very critical to get the learning from the other peoples and adopt what has been learned, what has been built, what has been deployed across the world. And that's the fastest way to deploy AI and maximize the usage of AI, rather than learning every piece of the things and try to create a system. Because the moment you learn one thing, tomorrow they change. So I'm not sure I tell anyone of this. So one of my counterpart in the States was always having conversation with some of the chipset vendor. So there was one day we were showing the roadmap of chipset. And I said, oh, this is the latest. He told me, Danny, this few company change their roadmap as frequent as I change my socks. So I was saying, do American change your stock every month or every 2 months? No, I change my stock every day. So if you look at that kind of a scenario, that the chipset that had changes, and also the evolution of the facility to support that are undergoing such drastic transformation, there is no way one company can learn so fast. No way. So I guess it's best to pick and work out what you really want and talk to the right people to build and to construct it for you. Yep.
All right, thank you so much. So don't be too stressed out building everything yourself. Look for the right experts to help you. Thank you so much, Danny, for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.